All right, welcome back for example 3. We're going to be finding measures of angles formed by transversals. So in this figure, it says that line X is parallel to line Y. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little parallel mark right here just to show that those are parallel lines. Okay. Then it says find the measure of each angle and justify. So we have A, B, C, and D. So the first one is the measure of angle 3. So notice that when these are parallel and there's this transversal, we can use the alternate interior angles, the alternate exterior angles, and the corresponding angles. We can also use adjacent angles and vertical angles to be able to figure out what the angle measures are. So first, let's look at the only thing it's telling us is that this angle is 80 degrees. It wants us to find the measure of angle 3. And since these lines are parallel, I'm going to say that 80 and 3 are corresponding angles. So I'm going to say the measure of angle 3 is equal to 80 because of corresponding angles. That's the justification. Let's look at measure of angle 2. This one. So what do you see here? I'm seeing adjacent angles, right? So basically, I know that this angle 2 and 80 add up to be 180 degrees. So I'm going to say the measure of angle 2 plus 80 equals 180 degrees because they are supplementary. We get we want to isolate the measure of angle 2, so I'm going to subtract 80 to both sides. That cancels. I'm left with the measure of angle 2 equaling 100. All right. Okay, perfect. So the justification would be the two angles are supplementary. All right, now let's look at measure of angle 7. Okay, so we know that 3 is 80. We know that 2 is 100. So what would 7 be? Well, because these lines are parallel, these look like alternate interior angles. So that would mean that the measure of angle 7 would also be 100 because it's the same as 2. And the justification would be alternate interior angles. All right. And then lastly, let's look at the measure of angle 8. So what do we know so far? We know that the measure of angle 3 is 80. We know the measure of angle 2 is 100. We know the measure of angle 7 is 100. And they want us to find the measure of angle 8. So I would say, what do you think? The measure of angle 8 is definitely 80 degrees. Now why? Well, there could be two things. You could go vertical angles here, or you could go the alternate exterior angles here. And I think I'm going to go alternate exterior angles. So alternate exterior angles. That is the reason. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and move on to the next example here. So X and Y, they are parallel, right? So I'm going to put my little parallel mark in there. Maybe I'll use 2 this time. Okay. Now we need to find the measure. The only thing we know is 120. All right. So we need to find the, how about you try this one? Okay, I want you to try E, F, G, and H. Okay, so here's my friend, the pause dragon. Remind you to pause your device. Go ahead and work those out. When you get done, press play and we'll talk about them. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, let's see how you did. So what I notice is that 120 and 7 are adjacent angles, which means they are supplementary. So I know that they add up, if they're supplementary, they add up to 180. So the measure of angle 7 plus 120 equals 180. So we're going to isolate this and get by itself using the subtraction property of equality. Those cancel. We're left with the measure of angle 7 equals 180 minus 120 is 60. And that's it. And we would say, because the reason is supplementary angles. Supplementary angles. Okay. Now let's look at the measure of angle 2. Okay, so the measure of angle 2, we now know that 7 is 60 degrees, right? So what I see is that 60 and 2 are alternate exterior angles, and they're going to be congruent. So I'm going to say the measure of angle 2 is equal to 60 degrees because of alternate exterior angles. Okay, so this one is 60 as well. All right, time to move on to the next. Measure of angle 3. Okay, measure of angle 3. So there's a couple things I see. I see that we have the corresponding angles postulate here, or corresponding angles, and I also see vertical angles. So the measure of angle 3 is definitely 60. And I'm going to say because of corresponding angles. And lastly, we have the measure of angle 6, where if 7 is 60, vertical angles would show that 6 is also 60. So I'm going to say the measure of angle 6 equals 60 degrees because of vertical angles. All right, if you got all those right, wonderful job. Okay, let's move on to our last example here. We're looking at this picture. X and Y are parallel. Okay, and I just want you to answer these questions. So here's my friend the pause dragon. I remind you to pause your device. Go ahead and work those problems out. When you get done, press play and we'll talk about them. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, let's see how you did. So the only thing we're given is this 115. We need to find measure of angle 4. Those look like alternate interior angles, so measure of angle 4 equals 115. Alternate interior angles. Okay, now let's look at the measure of angle 8. So what do we know? We know that this is 115. I'm going to use a different color. 4 is 115. And now they want us to find 8. Well, hey, that looks like the corresponding angles. So measure of angle 8 is equal to 115 because of corresponding angles. All right, so this one is 115. And also vertical angles, right? Okay, let's look at measure of angle 1, which is here. Measure angle 1 is here. Ooh, we got some vertical angles there, but we also have corresponding angles with 115. So I think I'm going to say, let's go corresponding angles. So measure of angle 1 equals 115 because of corresponding angles. And then the last one we have is the measure of angle 2. Yeah. So it looks like we have 115 here. Measure of angle 2 and 4 are supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees. So we can say the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180 degrees. We know that the measure of angle 4 is 115. And then we just need to isolate, so we're going to subtract, use those inverse operations. That cancels. We're left with the measure of angle 2 equals, that would be 5, 7, 6, 65 degrees. And the reason would be because of supplementary angles. And I'm running out of room, so I'll just say supplementary angles up here. Supplementary angles. All right, and if you got all those right, yoku denkimashita, you did a wonderful job, and I will see you next time.